Hey everybody, so I'm finally doing a what I eat in a day. You've asked for it a jillion times and I'm finally doing it. So we're starting today with bircher muesli, which is one of Buds' favourite breakfasts ever. So I start by grating a couple of Braeburn apples, add in half a cup of oats, half a cup of cocoa dairy-free yogurt, any kind of yogurt, dairy-free or not, is great, and then 2/3 cups of soy milk and then a sprinkling of cinnamon, and then I'm just going to give that a proper good mix until it's all really well combined. And bircher muesli is so delicious. It's a really light breakfast, it keeps really fantastically in the fridge and it just tastes so good. And then of course the most important thing for Buds is that I add in a load of sultanas or raisins, and those are sultanas. And then a good squeeze of lemon juice to keep it preserved if I'm going to put some in the fridge. It depends how much we eat that morning. And then a little bit of maple syrup, just, because maple syrup is good. And then some hemp seeds just for a little bit of extra delicious. And then I'm going to have a cup of this really yummy pucker tea. So I'm just going to dish it out into a couple of bowls, and then eventually I'm going to add some raspberries because raspberries are great. Buzz doesn't really love raspberries. There he is eating it. He was feeding it to his reindeer. He's wearing a winter hat because he found it and put it on himself. But he really loves bircher muesli, and so do I. Look at it, it's just so scrumptious. And then I'm going to have my cup of tea in a takeaway cup because we are out for the morning. And we didn't eat all the bircher muesli, so I'm just popping it in a glass container, and then I'm going to pop it in the fridge because I can have it the following day. And so off we are, we're going out. He's having already more food. I'm having a banana and he is having a date bar. And then he's having even more food. He's having a custard tart, which we picked up at the coffee shop, and I got myself a vegan brownie, which is really melty because it's a really hot day. And now I'm into making lunch. So we're gonna have really delicious kind of meze kind of lunch, not your standard meze. So we're gonna start with just roasting some potatoes. And so I've just chopped these into wedges. It's just really regular potatoes, and then some sweet potatoes I'm gonna add in there. This is like one of my standard things that I like to make. I really love to bake vegetables because he really likes to eat them. I like to eat them. It makes them extra sweet and extra delicious. And I add some olive oil, some salt, some pepper, and then some herbe de Provence. That was my best French, I hope you liked it. And then I'm gonna add some onion because he really loves baked roasted onions. I'm not sure why, they go really sweet, so I guess that's why. But so I'm just gonna pop that in the oven for 40 minutes at 175. And then we're gonna have some sweet corn with it because we both are addicted to proper corn on the cob. And so I just boil that up for 6 minutes. Out come the vegetables a bit later. The sweet corn's got a while to cool off, so it's actually eating temperature, although I do run it under the sink, but you don't see that here. And yeah, I'm just gonna give those a bit of a shake before I put them back in the oven. And then this is the other kind of random stuff in the fridge. So that was some leftover lasagna, and these are pesto pitted olives from Sainsbury's. They're really nice and he loves them so much. I'm gonna quarter his because it's much better for him, but what you will see in a bit is him eating all of his olives. And some avocado because everyone eats avocado at lunchtime, don't they? I think they do, yeah. So I always slice it for both of us because it's delicious that way. I've just reheated the lasagna in the microwave, and not for very long, just so it's not fridge temperature, but it's really nice. And then gotta have some hummus. It really is a bit of a meze platter, I told you, a bit like tapas, but it's really gonna be such a yummy lunch. And then a bit of ketchup. This is the reduced sugar and salt one from Sainsbury's. It's brilliant, it's really delicious. And then adding in, oh my goodness, look at those. Those crispy but just like properly delicious. Oh, so good. I love roasted vegetables. So that's basically our lunch. It looks like a proper little feast, and actually I love corn on the cob. He ate most of it. Do you know the funny thing? He didn't actually eat any of his potatoes. I spent longest on the potatoes, and that's the bit that he didn't actually eat. Go figure. I ate all of mine, of course. And so now I'm on to making dinner. So whilst he's asleep, I usually do some prep work for dinner. I try and make meals that require prep work. So I'm making pizza. So I start by weighing out 500 grams of flour, add in a little bit of salt, and here I am with 325 mils of warm water, adding in a sachet of yeast, a tablespoon of coconut sugar, and 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and giving it a really good mix. You'll find when you mix it, it doesn't go totally smooth, but that's fine. Just leave it for like 5 minutes. Then I'm just giving the salt and the flour a good mix and making sure I take off my jewelry, because I forget later on in this video, of course, but it's really important to take it off when you're mixing dough. So give it all a really good mix. I love making dough, and pizza dough is my favorite because you can't really go wrong with pizza dough. Even if it doesn't rise heaps, like, it's still totally fine. Everyone loves a good crispy base, right? Anyway, so I give it a good knead. I also love this because you don't have to knead it for too long. It's a really fantastic Jamie Oliver recipe. So I just leave the dough to rest in a bowl, sprinkle some water over the top. That's an essential step for making sure it rises. And there's the book. It's Jamie Oliver's Pizza Dough. I think it's page 182 from Jamie at Home. I just love Jamie, basically. And now I'm going to make crumble, which is another great prep thing to make, because even if I don't eat it that evening, if he eats all of his pizza or doesn't eat pizza, he'll always eat crumble, and crumble's really good for you. It's just fruit with some oats on the top. That's not a bad thing at all. So I'm starting by peeling, as you saw, a really great peeling of some Bramley apples, and then slicing them as thinly as I dare. It's really important as well to make sure you've taken out all of the rotten bits, because, well, I kept mine for a bit too long. And then I'm going to add a sprinkling of coconut sugar and give it a right little good mix. I've also added in some really, really delicious frozen fruit. I actually change it up from time to time. There's just peaches and nectarines. And then I'm adding in some of this lovely Vitalife dairy-free spread. Actually not sure why I didn't use coconut oil there, but hey well. And then I'm going to make the topping. This actually turned out to be more of a crisp than a crumble, but to be honest, I don't mind either, so it's totally fine. So I've added in, I think that's probably about 1.5 cups of oats, and then I mixed it in the wrong bowl, so I need to put it in a different bowl, because in the pan I need to melt off the butter. So there I am adding in 1/2 cup of butter. Actually, I think that's 1/4 cup. And I'm showing you the coconut oil because actually I really prefer my crumbles and crisps with coconut oil instead of that kind of dairy-free spread. I think it's much more nutritious. And then I'm adding in 1/4 cup of some maple syrup. And then I'm adding a little tiny sprinkling of salt to the topping and a couple of spoonfuls of almonds, because I like to add almonds or coconut or seeds or just something to make it more low GI and a little bit more nutritious. So I'm giving that a really good stir all together, and then I'm going to realize that the mixture is a bit too moist, a bit too flapjacky, and so I've added in a load more oats to make it actually like a bit more like a crumble, but it still ended up a bit more like a flapjacky crisp. But like I said, I don't mind. Still really, really good. One thing I didn't do here, which I normally do, is to add a little bit of water to the bottom of the pan, just so it does help moisten those delicious fruits and make it a bit more crumbly and delicious, like kind of puree like. Sometimes I even puree the fruit before I add it in there. And then I'm going to put it on for 35 minutes at 170, and it smells so good whilst it's cooking. Like really, really, really good. And then I noticed that it was getting a bit crispy too soon, and so I turned it down to 150 about 10 minutes before it finished. And just whilst it was finishing cooking in the oven, the pizza dough had risen, and it looks so beautiful. It had risen so much and so well, and so I'm just gonna knock it back by putting it on the side table there and giving it a cut in half, because it's going to make 2 pizza bases, and then I'm just going to knead each one a little bit until it's kind of a nice round shape ready to roll out. And actually I'm going to put them in the fridge because it's very important to make sure they don't expand anymore and overproof before I actually knead them, and I won't need it for a couple of hours because we're going out that afternoon. So one of them's going to go in that massively packed fridge and the other one in the freezer. I did manage to find a space somehow in that fridge. And then the crumble is done, so I just leave it on the side to cool down. I actually put a tea towel over it before I go, but look how delicious that turned out. I actually think it was one of the best toppings I've ever made. It always seems to turn out different. Anyway, so we've gone out and come back by the time I'm actually making this next lot of pizza dough, or not making it, but getting it ready. And so I've just popped it onto a baking tray with some baking paper, put some flour on it, and started to knead it. But for some reason I decided to use my hands instead of a rolling pin, and then I totally got my engagement ring in there, totally errored. But I'm just going to cover it with some tomato puree. Sometimes I make my own sauce, but today I wanted to be a bit more kind of chilled with it. And then I've added some frozen spinach on there. It's kind of not that great, to be honest, the frozen spinach, but it does add some additional colour as well as nutrients. And then add some chopped up tomato. Very important to chop your tomatoes with a serrated knife. It makes it so much easier. And then some salmon, which I've just sort of cut up into pieces. I know that if my son doesn't really want to eat the pizza base, he'll always eat the salmon, but then today actually he didn't eat either, as you're about to find out. Then I'm going to try some of this free from cheese from Sainsbury's, which I've never tried before, and to be honest, I wasn't that impressed. I've tried the Daya stuff before, and that's so much better, their mozzarella style cheese, so I was kind of a bit saddened by that. Very important with your pizza to add olive oil at the end. Anyway, this is the reason my son didn't eat his dinner. He ate this Panda natural licorice bar. He loves raspberry licorice, and this bar, he ate the whole thing when we were out in town, and I'm pretty sure that's why he didn't eat his pizza. But I helped him with it, so it was fine. So I've just put some mayonnaise on the side because we like to dip our crust in mayonnaise, and there is the pizza already out the oven. It really only takes about 10 to 12, maybe 15 minutes. It depends on your oven, I guess. But I'm just gonna eat half of it myself / with little buds, and we'll see how we go. But as I said, he didn't really eat very much because he'd eaten that licorice bar. It's just such a shame because it turned out really nice. It was actually, because I hadn't rolled it out properly with a rolling pin, it was thicker than I normally have it, but it was still really great. And then I thought, well, I'll see if he'll eat some crumble with some delicious Alpro cream. But he didn't really want any of that either. Instead, he just had a banana and some soy milk before he went to bed. So I really hope you enjoyed that video. Let me know what you think in the comments box below, and I will catch up with you soon in a new video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.